Are you ready to learn about a fun new product from Ranger Ink? Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here. I am partnering with scrapbook.com to show you the new Distress Spritz from Tim Holtz and Ranger Ink. I can't wait to share some fun techniques with you. I am so excited to have these awesome little shimmery sprays on my desk today. These brand new Distress Spritz from Tim Holtz and Ranger Ink just arrived from scrapbook.com, and I can't wait to share them with you. The colors I received are picked raspberry, spiced marmalade, twisted citron, uncharted mariner, and wilted violet. Each 1 ounce spray bottle is similar in color to the Ranger inks you may already have, but these have a glorious shimmer to them. I noticed right away that the color and shimmer are separated, which is common with sprays. The directions say to shake the bottle, but I've discovered that it mixes much faster when I roll the bottle. This also prevents any of the shimmer bits from ending up in the spray tube. Like most sprays, the nozzle is going to need to be cleaned after we're done spraying, and I'm going to talk more about that here in a moment. Now, before I share some techniques and projects with you, I need to let you know that I received these without any instructions. So everything I share with you is going to be from my own crafty experimentation. I'm going to keep this simple today and tell you all that I learned as I was playing with this lovely collection of Distress Spritz sprays. Let's start by just spraying each of these colors onto some mixed media paper. As I said earlier, the mixture will need to be swirled around a bit before you begin spraying. I rolled or swirled each of the bottles until the liquid was mixed. It looks thicker, more vibrant, and shimmery. It's also similar in color to the Distress inks you're familiar with. I'm going to start with picked raspberry. I have placed both black and white mixed media paper from scrapbook.com onto a silicone mat. This is going to make cleanup a lot easier. Like you, I'm seeing this for the very first time. So we're just going to spray this right across the papers, and oh my goodness, isn't that pretty? Now I'm just doing a light coat of color here because I want to see what it's going to look like once it dries. Honestly, I did not expect that much shimmer. It's really pretty, isn't it? Before I move to the next color, I'm going to clean the spray nozzle. Just like most of the sprays you may have in your collection, the nozzles can clog if the mixture dries in the tip. Alright, let's try spiced marmalade. As I'm mixing this, it looks like it's going to have a coppery color. This is going to be a great one for fall. Once again, I'm going to spray this lightly over some black and white mixed media paper. And it is a great copper color. This is a little bit different than the spiced marmalade ink that I'm familiar with, but I really do like it. I'm going to clean the spray tip real quick so that I can try the next color. This one is twisted citron. I have already mixed everything together so that I can show you what it looks like. Now, twisted citron is one of my favorite greens to use on spring leaves, but this spray is much softer. Right away, I can see that it has more of a yellow hue on that white paper. I can't wait to see what this looks like when it's dry. Uncharted mariner is another one of my favorite colors, and I'm so excited to see what this spritz looks like. Oh, it really is an awesome blue. This one's going to be great for the 4th of July. All right, last one. Wilted Violet is an intense purple, and it looks like this Distress spray is going to be just as bright. Isn't that lovely? I can't wait to make some flowers with this one. Now let me clean this up real quick so that I can show you what these look like once they're dry. Take a look at these. We have picked raspberry, spiced marmalade, twisted citron, uncharted mariner, and wilted violet. Aren't they gorgeous? The colors are more vibrant on the black backgrounds, but you can really see the color on the white. Remember, this was just a light spritz of color, which means that they're going to be even more intense with multiple layers. I really wish you could see all the shimmer on camera. It's such a beautiful sight. So are you ready for some project ideas? I'm going to create multiple backgrounds using 2 of the Distress Spritz sprays, and I'm going to show you how they look over ink and texture paste. Let's get started. I have brought in a clean silicone craft mat for this part of the project. I'm using white mixed media paper from scrapbook.com, and I'm going to start by adding a layer of picked raspberry Distress oxide ink over the top. I'm using a foam blender to apply the color. You could also use a blending brush. This mixed media paper has such a smooth surface that is perfect for blending. I rarely end up with any ink blobs. Of course, I want to see what this is going to look like on some black mixed media paper too. I'll just quickly blend some of the picked raspberry Distress oxide ink over the top of this. Now, Distress oxide has a wonderful chalky finish, especially on dark backgrounds, but it does take a little longer to dry. So I'll set this aside for a moment while I add the texture paste to my first background. I'm going to bring in one of my favorite stencils from scrapbook.com. The silicone mat prevents the mum stencil and paper from shifting, and I'll add a few pieces of mint tape to the top and the bottom of the stencil to make sure that I don't accidentally move it. I did add a link to the stencil and the other items I'm using today in the description below, so that you can grab any of the supplies that you need for your projects. I'm going to use grit texture paste from Ranger Ink. Of course, you can use any texture paste that you have in your collection. This one just happened to be one that I chose today because I like how it adds such a subtle texture to a project. It is much thinner than modeling paste or opaque texture paste, which makes it really easy to use on delicate stencils like this one. Isn't this just lovely? The details in this stencil are amazing. I'm going to set this aside to dry and repeat the process on the black mixed media paper. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera so that we can continue with the project. Now that all the texture paste has dried, I'm going to spray some of the picked raspberry Distress Spritz over the top. I'm just going to do a soft layer of shimmer, and immediately you can see how vibrant this is over the top of that inked background. It really picks up the color of the ink and the details of the stencil, doesn't it? Now I made a second background because I also want to see what this looks like with another Distress Spritz over the top. This one is Wilted Lilac. Wow, isn't that pretty? Now here we can really see that the spritz has a little bit of translucentness to it, doesn't it? The pools of ink are a little darker, but the picked raspberry ink in the background still shows through. I like it a lot, don't you? Let's add some color to the black backgrounds real quick. I decided to make a second one without ink because I wanted to see what the picked raspberry Distress Spritz would look like over the top of a non-inked background. Once again, the translucentness of this spray allows some of the black in the background to show through. All right, I'm going to set these aside to dry and gather some card making supplies, and then we're going to make some cards with these lovely backgrounds. Before I do, I thought I would share the finished pieces. I am one who likes to compare apples to apples, so I created identical backgrounds with the same stencil, ink, sprays, and paste. So here is a background that I made without any ink. This is just a white mixed media paper with texture paste and a layer of picked raspberry Distress Spritz over the top. It has such a gorgeous shine, doesn't it? Let's compare this to the one with the inked background. This one is much more vibrant, and you can really see the details in that stencil image. The shimmer on this one is also much more noticeable. Let me grab the ones with the darker backgrounds. This first piece here was without ink. You can see a subtle color and shine over the paper. Most of the color pooled around the stencil images. Now when we compare this to the inked background, there's quite a bit of difference, isn't there? The stenciled images are not as noticeable, but there is a more even coverage of color. Now remember, we also added some wilted lilac to our backgrounds. Let me grab those real quick. Now I learned something else about these sprays when I was using the wilted lilac. Both backgrounds were inked with picked raspberry distress oxide, and then they were sprayed with wilted lilac. The only difference is the one on the left had heat applied to the Distress Spritz spray. I wanted to speed up the drying process, so I used my heat tool, and as you can see, it dulled the color slightly. It still has that shine and shimmer, but there's almost a chalk-like finish. All right, let's create some really simple cards with these shimmery backgrounds. I have an A2 white card base, a piece of black cardstock cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I've trimmed down my stenciled background to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. I am wrapping some white twine around the base, and then I'll adhere it in place with some artiste glue. This is going to sit right here in the center, and then I'll place it on my card base. Now you might have noticed that there was a little flower cut out of that black cardstock. This was from another project. I knew that that cutout would be hidden, and I hated to waste some cardstock. All right, let's bring in a few flowers. From white cardstock, I have cut some larger flower layers using the dies you see here. These are some of my most used florals from scrapbook.com. I also cut some top layers from vellum, and I'm going to adhere these all together to form some lovely little florals. I also like to create dimension in my flowers by just bending the petals slightly. This is something that you can choose to do, or you can skip it altogether. I am keeping this simple with white flowers, but you can add color to these with inks or the Distress Spritz sprays. I had debated on using all those background pieces we created for these flowers, but I chose to use them on a scrapbook page instead. I'll be sharing that video tomorrow, and I'll show you some more ways that you can use these new Distress Spritz sprays. I'm just going to pop these down onto my cards with some foam tape. Behind each one, I'm going to adhere some vellum leaves. I love the simplicity of vellum and the soft texture it adds to a project. As I finish adhering the leaves in place, I would love it if you took a moment to tap the subscribe button or the thumbs up icon and let me know that you are enjoying today's video. I truly appreciate your comments, and I always enjoy answering your questions. In the centers of the flowers, I'm going to add some little white buttons. I added some twine to each of these for texture. If you wanted, you could also add a stamped sentiment or grab a few of your favorite sticker phrases for these cards. I am going to keep it simple today and just finish them off with a few clear gems. The artiste glue comes with multiple tips, and this fine tip works great for adhering your gems in place. As I said, I'm keeping this simple today with white flowers and clear gems. Feel free to use any pearls, enamel dots, or sequins in your collection for these cards. I'm going to finish these up real quick and share some photos of the completed cards with you so that you can see all the lovely details. How much fun was that? These new Distress Spritz sprays from Holtz and Ranger ink are so simple to use. I barely touched the surface of what you can do with these, and I can't wait to share more projects with you. Don't forget to tap that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on my next project. I'm so excited to share my pastel scrapbook page with you and show you more techniques with these new Distress Spritz sprays. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions about this project or the supplies I used, feel free to leave that in the comments below. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.